When time is running out and a life is slipping away, drastic measures may be the only hope of turning a victim into a survivor. I'm William Shatner. Tonight, true stories of men and women whose courage is an inspiration on Rescue 911. We begin around 10 p.m. on June 28, 1991, along a crowded stretch of Interstate 75, just outside Valdosta, Georgia. Joanne and Dave Oser had driven this road many times before.
We were traveling to visit my family. Sometimes you're on stop and go on I-75. It was not like that at all. It was pretty full. We were traveling about 65 or 70 miles an hour, and the trucker behind me wanted to move, so I went over into the right-hand lane to let him pass.
Not far behind them, Jane Roddenhausen was driving on the same highway.
From the evidence at the scene, it appears that they left the roadway for unknown reasons. More than likely, she fell asleep.
When we continue,
there's a woman standing there. She said, "My God," she said, "somebody..."
A semi on Interstate 75. David Oser and his wife were driving right behind them.
I saw the car impact with the rig, and from there was just sparks and flames everywhere. I was hoping he wouldn't jackknife.
A few cars back, off-duty police officer Marty O'Connell and his family could not see what was happening.
I could smell burning rubber. I could see glass and smoke. From my past experience being in law enforcement and whatnot, I knew then there was a car accident.
There was no way we'd expect anybody could possibly live through that. I grabbed the cellular, I dialed 911.
There's a woman standing there. She said, "My God," she said, "somebody's got to get that woman out of there." At this time, I didn't even realize somebody was in the car still.
Get the box off her. We got to get the box off.
There was a truck driver standing to the rear of the semi. I said, "Oh, you got to get the trailer part off of her." There was flames, but not real great flames at this time.
Keep going. Come on. Come on.
And I ran to the different trucks and asking for fire extinguishers and bringing them back up to them.
Okay, right there, that's good.
But when he backed it off, the car really went up then because it got more air around it. I could see she was hurt really bad. I wasn't sure she was alive at this time or anything.
I'd always heard you never remove anybody because of possible injury, but if she'd stayed in the vehicle without being pulled out, she'd have definitely burned.
I lifted her up, but she wasn't coming out of the car.
Her foot stuck, hold on.
The flames would not stop. Then people kept saying, "It's going to blow, it's going to blow."
I really didn't pay that much attention to the flames at the time because I had just concentrated on getting her out. That was all I was worried about.
Help me with the door, help me with the door, somebody.
But the car's getting hotter and hotter. I could feel it when I picked her up. Her leg was broken. I thought for sure she was dead.
We looked back to the vehicle, and probably within a minute it was totally engulfed.
The 1st Cook County Rescue Unit arrived on the scene, including paramedic Ron Register.
When we first got there, my partner asked me, was she alive? She was unresponsive, barely breathing. We saw that she was burnt 18 to 20% 3rd degree and 2nd degree burns on one side of her body. We was figuring head injury, we was figuring C-spine injury, so we had to be suspicious of everything. I knew there was a possibility that she could die at any time.
"35-year-old Jane Rodenhausen was taken to South Georgia Medical Center and examined by trauma physician Howard Jones.
She has been in a car wreck. She is unconscious.
The first thing we had to do was just stabilize her ability to get air and breathe. She had a very high pulse, which shows signs that her circulatory system is near or at collapse. And she had multiple injuries to the left arm and leg, both burns and lacerations and fractures.
We got IVs going already?
Also, she had what's called a closed head injury. Our main concern after the initial stabilization was the fact that she had a comminuted ruptured spleen, and then she had a crushed pelvis. She had lost a great deal of blood. She required what's called red tag blood. It means you don't even bother to take the time to type it.
Jane was transferred to the burn unit of Shands Hospital at the University of Florida in a semi-conscious state. Her close friend, Kay Rogers, was notified of the accident.
Her face was swollen. She was covered in bandages. Her hair was burned. And it was just, it didn't look like Jane at all. It was not someone that I had seen before.
2 months passed before Jane regained full consciousness.
I remember looking up and seeing very bad acoustical tile. And I kind of put all these visual clues together and came up with the fact that I was in a hospital. I thought, oh no, something bad has happened. All the senses started reporting in, and it was like, left arm can't move it, left leg, nope, up in the air. Little by little, I knew I was in big trouble.
It was just like one day, she decided it was time to wake up and get with the program, and she did. And it was, after that, it was amazing.
3 months after the accident, Jane, who'd been a runner, participated in her first race from a wheelchair.
That was my goal when I was in the hospital, was to do this race. A good friend of mine, Kathy, pushed me the entire way. And at the very end, she stopped the wheelchair right before the finish line. I managed to get out of the wheelchair, and it wasn't very far across the finish line, but it seemed like a really long way. And I got to walk across it. So I was really tickled about that.
Marty O'Connell and his wife Gloria were at home 2 months after the accident when the phone rang.
I said, hello. She says, Marty. And when I heard her voice, when I heard her say my name, I knew who it was right away. And I had never heard her voice. And she said, Marty, this is Jane Rodenhausen. She goes, I just wanted to call and see how you're doing. I says, well, I said, I should be calling you, asking you how you're doing.
This man saved my life. How do you thank somebody for that?
Hello. How are you? How are you?
Hey, Marty, what's going on? He's called me both years on the anniversary of the wreck. I know who it is because I'll pick up the phone, I'll go hello, and he's like, do you know what you were doing this time 2 years ago? He and I have a bond. There's a sense of communion between us.
He asked me if I would mind if he got a tattoo with Jane's name printed in it. And I was like, oh, that would be cool, you know, so that's what he did.
This is cool. Okay, make a muscle.
Oh, stop it.
I want to see.
Jane, she thought that was the greatest thing in the world. She thought it was fantastic.
I really like this a lot.
Good.
That night, there were a lot of people who went out of their way to help her. And I think that they didn't even think twice. I think there were a lot of unsung heroes there, especially Marty. They were the sole reason that Jane's here today.
What I did took me 10 minutes. She's got to live with this every day, the rest of her life. And that's a lot to do. And you have to be a very, very strong person to be able to do that.
Before my accident, I was very caught up in the comfortable life and how to make it even more comfortable. No, well, geez. I've changed where I've lived. I changed what I do. I work with children with developmental disabilities, and It makes you feel like what you're doing counts. See? I think everything in this world is a domino effect. It affects everything. I'm a lucky kid. I get to do everything again. So this time around, what I want to make sure of is that I keep that candle lit and I keep the circle unbroken, and I do something good to someone who might do something good, to someone who might do something good. And impressive. That's how you do good things. Impressive. I think you did great. Well, should we give him a hand? Let's go.
Next.
With children, a lot of times they'll hold steady, and then all of a sudden the bottom will drop out. And she just looked like one of those people where that was going to happen.